Welcome back, everybody. I am really excited to chat with Angela today. We are going to talk about how to go from one-to-one, practicing one-to-one, to having an online group program, to have an online coaching program, and what that really does look like when you are all sort of set up and ready to go, and how fast things can really move for you. So welcome to the podcast, Angela.
Thank you, Laurie.
For those that don't know you, share a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hi, everyone. So my name's Angela, and I'm a general practitioner practicing in Sydney. I work in a group general practice, and I've been doing that for about 6 to 7 years now. And I had been practicing face-to-face medicine for a very long time. Then when the pandemic happened, I had my very first taste of telehealth, and I loved it. And I was looking for more opportunities to practice telehealth, but a lot of the medicine that I was practicing was very hands-on. So I needed to see patients face-to-face to give them injections, do their skin checks, do their pap smears. And so for me to practice telehealth, I needed to find a very niche area where I could just see them over the screen. And that very much meant that I could just focus on a very subspecialty area of general practice. Now, in my general practice, I also do a lot of weight loss medicine. And in the weight loss medicine, what I noticed was that I was just providing a lot of pharmacological support. So I was just providing the prescriptions. And when it came to the lifestyle support, like doing the exercise and providing the nutritional support, I was referring them out. So I was getting patients to find their own dietitian or their own personal trainer, or finding a physiotherapist or an exercise physiologist. And it meant that patients really needed to navigate all of the complexities, and they really needed to find their own and coordinate their own multidisciplinary team. And that meant that it was up to the patients to manage all of the mixed information at times, and it was quite difficult for them. So what I decided was that I would manage that for them. I would take over as the team leader, and I would in fact create a signature program where I would be the doctor that provides all of those supports, provides that accountability, that support, the lifestyle support, and the medicine. And all that the patient has to do is essentially show up.
I love that. Very much like a group practice, but you are really making sure that everybody is sort of following your lead. And I think that's one of the things that's maybe hard for, specifically physicians, nurses, dietitians, RMTs to sort of wrap their mind around is, how do I make sure that everybody still gets this level of individualized care in this sort of group setting? Because I know, when you have an online program, you are enrolling the patients, the clients, into one program, and everybody sort of getting the same protocol, so to speak. So how do you adjust for that? Like, how do you compensate for that when, people might have individual needs, likes, dislikes, and all of that good stuff?
Yeah. Well, what I did was I created like a hybrid type program where there is a group element to it and there is a one-to-one element to it. So my program consists of 16 weeks where there are 6 individual medical consultations. And during those medical consultations, then I provide their medical care. So during those consultations, I will generally titrate the medications, monitor for side effects, and individualize their nutritional recommendations. And then they also come to weekly group coaching. So on Wednesday nights, they come and see myself and the nutritionist, and we will provide coaching and provide generalized recommendations. So they can ask about things like, what are the best sources of vegetarian sources of protein, or what are some good dietary sources of iron, or what are some great healthy options for muesli bars. And then they come on Fridays to our live exercise class, and they ask our physiotherapist some great exercise options as well. So there is a group element, and there is also a personalized element as well.
And what is the fee that you charge for this?
Well, I just took your advice, Laurie. You recommended that I set the fee at $19.97, and that's exactly where I started at.
Yeah. And so what do you charge now, though?
I had to increase the price because it was quite popular, and I increased it initially from $19.97 to $2,397.
And what did I tell you to charge?
And you told me to increase it further, but I haven't quite increased it yet.
And so this is a really interesting interesting thing. And I don't want to veer too off because I do want to get into the nitty gritty of like how you set this up and all of the different supports that you have in place. But I think it's a really important point to emphasize here before we move on is that there are a lot of professionals who are very scared to charge that amount, especially doctors, right? Because in certain parts of the world, medical care is free in certain parts of the world, or it's insurance, or it's known to be very expensive. If you're in the US, it's not covered unless you have insurance. In Canada, I'm not sure if it's the same in Australia, but in Canada, I don't have to pay anything to go to a doctor. And at the same time, we all know that with no disrespect to the medical profession, it's not really set up to provide transformation. Right? It's not really set up to provide this level of care. And so I'm so curious because you and I have never talked about this before, but what was it that really made you want to do this? Like other than obviously the benefits that you get to make more money and work less. But right now I know you're working more, but because you're growing it and you're building it. But at the same time, it's like, the level of support that you're providing to your patients is not a typical sort of medical practice. It's not the way that a typical medical practice functions.
Yes.
So what was it that made you even want to do this?
The greatest motivator is actually achieving a good result for the patient and actually genuinely making a difference. And that has always been the goal from the very beginning. So it has never been to make money. And a side goal has always been to achieve some personal freedom for myself and to be able to practice some telehealth. But the goal has always been to achieve results for the patients. And because of that, what I have seen is that when I've been doing it as a hybrid model, the patients that have been doing it in my signature program have been far outperforming the patients in the face-to-face practice because they have been getting that level of support. And when we talk about finances, because in Australia, we do have the availability of bulk billing, which means that patients are able to see a doctor and not pay anything out of pocket. That is something that I have considered. And it also is that, there is the availability of so many other programs that patients could join where there is a much smaller out-of-pocket cost. So, for example, patients could definitely choose like some kind of celebrity program. They could choose like some kind of personal trainer program. They could choose some kind of group program. Why should they choose some kind of program that is designed by a general practitioner that goes for 16 weeks? That includes 6 individual consultations. So what makes me special, right? And why would they choose to pay a lump sum? Well, when I went out and when I designed this, and a lot of people questioned whether I would be any success at all when I had no backing whatsoever. So they said, I don't know if you're being crazy and I don't know if you're being a dreamer going out and doing this and funding it yourself. You have like no Medicare support because patients can't get a Medicare rebate. You have no insurance support. You don't have any government funding. You're asking people to pay out of pocket to pay for themselves to take a chance on you and to get results. And I said, yeah, but I'm going to get them results. So that's all that matters. And they're going to get support. They're going to get me. They're going to get a physio. They're going to get a nutritionist. And I'm going to make a difference because I'm not just going to be that one-hit wonder that's going to give them a script and they're going to lose weight temporarily while they take a script. They're actually going to kickstart the process and put long-term habits into routine so that they can keep the weight off in the long term. So that is what's going to make me different to every other doctor and every other program that's out there. And they said, all right, you can try it. I don't really need your permission. That's fine. So that takes me back to money. And when I've said to patients, look, I'm a doctor who works in a private practice. I'm not one of those doctors that bulk bills where you don't pay anything to see the doctor. And this is my fee. A lot of them have actually said, I respect that and I'm happy to pay and I want to try your program.
Mm-hmm. To the point where Angela and I were having a conversation because she opened the practice and within, I think, a matter of weeks had 32 clients?
Yep. So in my first month, I launched and I had 181 people coming to the webinar. I had about 30 calls booked and got my first 10 clients. In the second month, then I got my next 5 clients. And last month, I had 194 people coming to the webinar and I had 15 people join. So right now, I'm looking after 32 patients.
Did you go back to those people who were like, hey, guess what? Hey, guess what? I did say to $20,000 cash in my first
Well, a few people
month.
have said, look, wait, your practice just came out of nowhere. And I said, no. You did say to me, you did say to me, I didn't think that you would succeed. And I said, I just believe that if you keep on going and if you believe in what you're doing, then it doesn't matter. The money doesn't matter as long as you believe in what you're doing.
Yeah. And one of the conversations that we have all the time is, what's in the best interest of the client, right? And this is something that I speak about a lot, is that this one-to-one hourly session, whether it's me as a nutritionist doing it, you as a doctor, you get less time than an hour, it doesn't work. It doesn't work to provide any level of change, any level of change. My daughter was we were just at our doctor. She was having some hormone things and he ran her blood work and, she needs to lose a little bit of weight. And he said to her, my daughter's 14 years old. And this is what he says to her. He says, so for the next 6 months, you really shouldn't eat anything aside from lean protein and vegetables to lose the weight. And I was like, Stop talking. She's 14. Stop talking. What? Don't tell her she can't eat carbs. Please, God, don't tell her. You know what I mean? And I was like, whoa. I'm like, okay, we're done. Thank you. Thank you for the result. Like, thank you. And I was like, don't listen to him. It's not for lack of trying, but it's just, this whole idea of helping people change and helping people transform is at the root of everything that we do. Everything. Yes. It's everything that I do. It's everything that you do. It's everything that all of our clients do. And I believe that when you keep that at the forefront, like you have, right? Where we've had conversations where you're like, they need more support. I'm like, great, bring people in, make sure the metrics work, but bring people in. Who are you going to bring in? Physio, nutritionist, right? Different team members to support you, just coach your clients. It's because at the end of the day, yes, it's a business. And we know that transformation isn't an overnight thing. It's not, okay, here's your meal plan. Bye. Good luck. It doesn't work like that. And I think that's one of the reasons you've been able to be so successful is because you really did treat it in a very holistic way. You weren't just, okay, go do fitness, go do this, go do that. You really looked at what the person themselves needed and then went out and sourced the specialist to be able to provide that,
And I think that the patients can see that as well. So the patients do feel that I'm genuinely taking good care of them and that I have their best interests at heart. And that's why they are staying on as graduates as well. So when they are nearing their 5th consultation, then I ask them, what is your next goal? Is your next goal to lose a further 5 to 10%? Or is your next goal to aim for maintenance and to wean off the medication? And they will often tell me their next goal and they would say, I would love you to supervise me for the next 4 months. Can I stay?
Yeah, which is amazing. So you're really getting them for 8 months, which, let's be honest, is how long it takes to lose weight, right? You're not going to, if you're doing it in a healthy way, of course, right? Like if you're doing it in a sustainable way, that's really, really amazing. Tell me, what were some of the struggles that you found over the course of, building the online part of it and really working through, those first couple of months of clients?
Well, one of the struggles that I have is that I am a doctor and I have never done anything online before. I had a Facebook page very briefly, only for a couple of years when Facebook first came out, and then I disappeared into no man's land. Yeah. I've also never had an Instagram account or a LinkedIn account. I'm a very, very private person. So to put myself out there publicly was a bit of a challenge, but I just did it. And I made a decision with how much that I was happy to put out there in the public. And my decision is that I'm happy to put everything out there except for my daughter's face. So I'm happy to put everything else out there, including bits and pieces showing that I am a doctor, I am a mother, I'm someone who enjoys exercise, and I even do put videos together of my daughter and I cooking together on the weekend, but I just don't show her face. And I'm happy to show that to the world, but I just don't want to show her face because I believe that that is something private and personal and treasured between myself and her. So that's something where I decided where the line was as a doctor putting myself out in the real world. That was one thing. The second thing was building. So having to build a signature program and having to write a bunch of emails and having to build a signature program was a challenge. But luckily, all I did was follow the step-by-step instructions that you provided me and did exactly what I was told. And it was very easy to do. So thank you for all of your clear instructions, Lauren.
You're so welcome. I want to talk about that for a second. You know, the decisions that you've made, because I know we've talked about that. You know, we've had in our coaching calls, not just with you, but with other professionals who were like, listen, like I'm a social worker, like I'm a licensed social worker. I can't put myself out into the world. You know, there's a level of professionalism. And I think it's a really interesting conversation in terms of, you know, what it means to be a professional and how to use your profession to transform lives. And I think that, you know, we can't ignore the fact that social media exists and the rules of engagement have changed, right? And I would like to know what my doctor eats for breakfast, wouldn't you? You know what I mean? So it's like, what is my doctor doing for exercise? My doctor's ripped. You know what I mean? I want to know, like, what are you eating? So I think there's this whole idea nowadays of where do you draw the line, right? Where do you draw the line? How do you decide, you know, to what level of privacy are you entitled? And how do you use your day-to-day life to build the brand? And we've talked about this because there's this distinction. Like everybody's entitled to have a private life and everybody's entitled to draw the line in the sand for themselves. How did you get over being a very private person? Was there any fear that you had? Like I've seen you put your exercise videos online. Like, how did you get over that?
I'm quite happy to put my exercise videos online, and I'm quite happy to put all of my medical advice online. I'm quite happy to put all of those things on there because I believe it's for the greater good. So I believe to promote exercise and to promote patient education and to promote parents cooking healthy recipes with their children are good. So if the messaging is good and if it's to promote a greater good, then I will always do it.
Even when you feel uncomfortable or silly?
Even when I feel uncomfortable, I will do it if it's for a good cause. Yeah,
I love that so much. So, okay, so you have an online program. You're charging $23.97
currently.
$23.97. You have 30 plus clients. You have a nutritionist. You have a physio. Let's talk about now what you now see as possible for you that you didn't even see 6 months ago. How has your vision, your belief system, like, you know, and I want to sort of give a little context. When you're building your online business, you're doing it piece by piece. Mm-hmm. And so it's really hard to see the whole picture, right? And then you launch this thing and you're like, wow, I just built an entire business in a really short period of time. And then you start to get clients and the clients get results. And then your belief starts to change, right? In terms of, okay, this is real. Like this isn't just, you know, a webinar or a Facebook group. This is a real thing. Talk to me a little bit about the noticeable shifts in your own belief and your own sort of viewpoint around what's possible for you now versus then.
Okay, definitely. So this is where I was on the 8th of August when I started the program with you. Mm-hmm. So I was a big dreamer going to start a signature program, and I wanted to work 3 days a week in my face-to-face practice, and I wanted to work 2 days a week in my signature program, and I wanted to have 1 to 2 patients a month doing my signature program. So I thought that would give me really good freedom to work from home, the ability to do some telehealth and the ability to do a little bit of school pickup and drop off on the side. Yeah. And that is what I thought would happen. And I didn't realize that I would be getting patients really good results. I didn't realize that word would spread like wildfire. I didn't realize that this would become so popular in such a short period of time. And then what actually happened is that the webinar registrations went really hard and fast. I was expecting to have 1 or 2 people in the audience and just rock it. I was expecting to have 1 or 2 people in my program and just do a really good job of nurturing and looking after these people and getting excellent results. And this is what I thought would happen. And I had planned to get a return on my investment essentially by June or July of this year. So June or July 2023, I was going to get a return on my investment. Later. That's right. So that was my plan. Things have not gone to plan, obviously. And now obviously I have 32 clients and we are in month 4 of launch. Yeah. So what is happening is, generally speaking, each time I have a webinar, I generally have about almost 200 people attending. And I think that I'm going to be having about 10 to 15 new patients coming each month. Although next month I have a special guest coming and she has about 4,000 people on her email list. So there is a chance that when next month's webinar happens, a wait list is going to happen. And so my webinars are not going to be monthly. They might end up being every 6 weeks, or I might have to start enrolling my patients into the future where they have staggered starts.
Yep.
So that might happen. And what also might happen is that I might either have to take on another doctor, or I might have to just make the program very selective and only look after a certain number of patients and provide very, very specialized care to a very small number of patients. I haven't quite decided where this is going yet, but I do have to make that kind of business decision so that I'm able to maintain a level of control, and I'm also able to maintain control, and I'm also able to still provide excellent care to the people who are within the program, because at the root of it, that's what I want to do. I want to provide excellent care to people who are within the program, and I still want to get them results. At the end of the day, I don't want this to be a money-making program. I don't want this to be, a high-flying company. I still want this to be a program that gets people excellent weight loss results. And that's why what I've done with the unexpected profits, when I've gotten 15 people enrolled in the last month, what I've done is I've created bonus coaching calls. So when people have been coming to the coaching calls on Wednesdays nights with the nutritionist and on Fridays with the physiotherapist, I've been doing a lucky dip, and everyone goes into the draw, and if one person will win a bonus one-to-one coaching call with the nutritionist or a bonus one-to-one call with the physiotherapist. So the idea is it generates excitement, it generates attendance, and then one lucky person will get a call with the physiotherapist or with the nutritionist. I'm using that extra money to give to the physiotherapist or the nutritionist, and then they are going to get even better results. So I'm trying to move the profits into the people so that the people get even better results. So at my core, that's what I'm trying to achieve.
Yeah. And I think that's really important. And I think I love hearing that. It makes me so happy because that's what it is, right? When you are able to reinvest back into the business to get your clients even more results, and better results. And, I have so many conversations with people who are so scared. They're so scared to show up online. They're so scared, like, what if it doesn't work? They're so scared that nobody's going to buy. They're so scared they're not going to be able to handle it. Handle whatever comes, the first client, the second client, the angry clients, whatever the case may be. And I just, when I hear stories like yours, and that I operate under the mantra, like, you can't model what you don't see. I just think, like, how could you not pursue this? Thank goodness you didn't listen to those people. Thank goodness you weren't just like, oh, you're probably right. Okay, I'll just settle for this life, and I'll just be the same as everyone else and not, step out on my own and follow what I believe in my gut to be true. Because so many people do that. And I think that, having some structure in your business, and, we've had those conversations. And I remember when you came to me and you're like, I'm having a problem. I'm like, you need to increase your price because that's going to really support, yes, it's on the one hand, I understand sort of the argument of like, everybody should be able to afford it. Okay. And then on the other hand, it's like, yes, and this is a way to really sort of slow down and maintain the integrity of the program, right? Maintain the integrity of what you're trying to do in this world is by raising the price, right? Is by raising the price a little bit from, $23.97 to $3,000. And I remember your eyes sort of like, you're like, oh gosh, I'm like, your close rate is high. People will pay it because they believe they feel safe, right? You have result, you have proof, they feel safe. They're happy to pay it. And I think that's so important, that to sort of recognize, that it's not like you're just asking them to pay $3,000 for like PDFs,
That's right.
like, you know what I mean? So the value is there. Do you want to talk about some some of maybe the feelings you've had around charging and if there was any fear that you had or any nervousness that you've had around the fee?
Yeah. One of the things that I was taught by the coaches was that with a fee, you've got to feel like it is a reasonable exchange of energy, and you've got to feel confident when you say the fee out loud. So I did feel confident saying the $19.97 fee out loud because it was a reasonable fee compared with what I was charging face-to-face, taking into account the 6 one-to-one consultations and then the other 16 weeks of support in addition to that. When I first raised the fee to $2,397, the first month of the breakthrough calls, my voice was a little bit wobbly and I didn't have a very good conversion. But in the second month that I did it, because I had already had a month of practicing, supporting people, doing those one-to-one consultations, seeing them every week, I was able to see the value that I was providing over that 4-week period and the value that my coaches were providing during that time. And I think that my confidence increased during that time. And I was thinking, gosh, they're getting a lot of value out of this $2,397 that I'm charging. And I think because I believed in the fee, my confidence had increased. I think that that is the reason why my conversions had improved by the time that I did the breakthrough calls in month 2. And I think that the same thing will happen if and when my fee increases in the subsequent months.
Yeah.
But something that you touched upon just then as well, which was the mantra that you need to see something to believe in it. That's something that I had heard in your previous podcast as well before I had actually joined the program. And I have actually never seen a GP produce a signature program. And I have actually only ever seen my GP forefathers before me practicing face-to-face medicine and essentially finishing medical school, starting in a practice in an apprenticeship model, and then doing the same thing. So starting a practice, essentially, generally speaking, starting a bulk billing practice where they don't charge an out-of-pocket fee. And then after a couple of years, when you do get a steady following, changing to a mixed billing model where some of the patients who can afford it are charged a gap, and then eventually turning into a private billing clinic. So after decades and decades, eventually you're charging patients. And that is the typical pathway for a GP once you become established. And I thought that that was the pathway that I would be taking in the years to come. And so it's very, very different for me to kind of take a risk and go online and put myself out there. But it is a risk that I was willing to take because I believed that I could genuinely get a better result for my patients by providing them this multidisciplinary approach, by providing them the patient education online. And also I could see that patients actually prefer telehealth. And also because if I just provide a face-to-face practice, that means that only patients who live around my area can essentially access me. But if I actually put myself on social media and patients all over Australia can hear about Dr. Angela, then I can essentially treat any patient living in Australia who will have access to Dr. Angela. So by putting myself online, I increase access to anyone who is struggling and looking for a doctor who is comfortable talking about weight loss, and the access increases. So because at my core, that is what I wanted to achieve, I took a risk and I did it.
Yeah, amazing. I feel like you should send a card to those people and be like, hi, I made $40,000 cash last month. How are you doing? But I agree with you in the sense that it's not a common practice yet to have GPs create signature programs. Again, because, and this is something that I fight against every single day because they're taught to be general.
Yes.
And online, you cannot be general. It doesn't work, right? And so I think over the next 3 to 5 years, we'll see a lot more nurses. I know that there's, this term nurse entrepreneur out there already. I think we're going to see a lot more nurses and a lot more GPs adding this to their practice because there's never been an easier time to do it with technology being what it is. And also, as much time as it takes, it's not really that difficult to do, right? Like it takes time, but it's not not like, it's not difficult. It's just you need a blueprint. You need to be shown the steps. But I mean, the knowledge that you have exists already in your mind. You have the experience and you just have to sort of formulate it.
I actually have so many doctor friends who have already come up to me and they said, you are so lucky that you practice weight loss medicine where you can practice it as telehealth because you don't have to examine the patient. The patient can actually hop on the scales by themselves and they can actually measure the waist circumference by themselves. And I said, I am not lucky. I picked weight loss as a subspecialty. You can pick your own subspecialty. Just pick one. There are plenty of subspecialties out there. Like I could pick 10 other subspecialties in general practice right now and make 10 other signature programs. Just pick one.
And isn't it so interesting that you can now see that though? Do you know what I mean? Where it's like, you can see that like acne could be a subspecialty, right?
That's right.
You know what I mean? Menopause, like, and they can, anyway, we could get into that because like, that's just, once you see it, you're like, that's foolish. Like you can go and create a signature program about ear infections, but really you can like ear infections, fungal infections, like you can create a signature program about anything. It doesn't have to, it doesn't even have to involve a physical exam.
That's right.
And once you sort of understand the premise, it's like I say, I can walk into any business right now and create for plumbing. I don't even know anything about plumbing. Doesn't matter, right? I could walk into any business, create a signature program, put a lead magnet up like within a matter of weeks because the formula for it is the same no matter what industry it is. It's just most people don't have the formula. So they think, well, I can't possibly do that because I'm a GP and I have to physically examine someone. And you're like, but you can just subspecialize in ear infections and you're good to go, right? Like you can do that. It's really, really interesting. Well, I appreciate this conversation. Thank you for being the example that people can model because this is you being an example. You are going first, most certainly. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you so much to everybody for listening and we will talk again soon. Bye.
Bye.